What's up, guys? It's your girl Weirdo here for the second piece of the vlog now. I'm going to be talking about so many different things, so hopefully you're able to tune in, listen to what I've got to say if you have the time, and yeah, hopefully you get some good stuff out of this new episode. So let's do it. Let's kick it in. What fuels me when I work? Food. But yeah, food fuels me, and want to change the world. I guess what I would say what fuels me is honestly wanting to change how we see the world, um, society in itself. That's what fuels me. Um, my family. Uh, yeah, what fuels me is knowing and believing that I can change the world for better in my own way. Growing up, you already know that I dealt with autism, which I didn't even get diagnosed until 23. But for the most part, I dealt with anxiety, I dealt with depression, and I dealt with just not knowing how to communicate efficiently and effectively with people. And it really isolates you, for one, and it also makes you the bearer of judgment and the bearer of people looking at you different or seeing you different. And as a black woman, I already get that. Um, so I'd say as far as that, it can be hard dealing with those things. It's just one of the struggles that I have that everybody struggles. But that fuels me is knowing what I've been through in my past and pushing it for better just because I feel like the world needs it. The world doesn't need selfish people. We're all pretty selfish. The world doesn't need people who only necessarily just think about themselves. Like we already, but we're all like that. What the world needs is people who are willing to help each other, people who are willing um, to uplift each other. And I don't see a lot of that, and that's an issue to me. So that's what fuels me, that's what drives me, is wanting to do good, is wanting to change our perspective of how we see things. And even from a person like me who is autistic, I sometimes see things different than the average normal neurotypical. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm seeing how we're doing this from a logical standpoint, mind you. I'm observing it from a logical standpoint. I'm observing what we're doing, and I'm just like, ooh, this is not it. This is not working. How did we fix this? How did we get here? You know, we've got, very selfish people and selfish leaders, and that it just, it correlates within each other. And it's just not good. It's not good for the world. It's not good for humanity. If we're all selfish, if we're all unloving, if we're all just about ourselves, it's honestly new, and it really, that's sometimes what stems a lot of my depression. Is just a lot of us are out here and we're alone and stuff, and we feel like, oh well, you asking for help and say, you're not gonna, you don't have the work ethic, you don't have the drive and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's not like that at all. They could have the work ethic, they could have the drive, but that doesn't mean that, you know what I'm saying, just because someone assumes something about you or has already made a mental judgment by what they perceive. Like as someone like me, like it just doesn't make sense. Like I don't get the whole you are what I perceive you to be, because most of the times you don't even get it right. Y'all don't even observe each other to get it right. So it's just weird. It's just, I can't. Whereas for me, from an autistic standpoint, when I first meet someone, I'm not judging you. I'm not assuming things about you. I'm not going off perception, because it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there's some vibes you can get off of people, some energy, but not everybody works in the same manner, and nobody's the same. So it's just like, I don't know, sometimes we perceive things and then we group things together and then we turn things into a competition. I just feel like we've taken extreme, like we've gone to the extreme with certain things that we do. And it's just like, where's the balance? You know, you can still care for yourself and still have those boundaries and still be a selfless person. And I'm not seeing that at all. At all. That or it's just not really displaying and showing out in the media. So it makes you not even really want to look at the media. It's just, it's a lot that's going on in the world. And it's just like, do I really want to enable that? Do I want to be complacent and allow that to keep going? Or is there someone who's willing to take that chance to actually change the world in a different way, in a different light? You know what I'm saying? And people who are changing the world now, that is not a jab at them. You know what I'm saying? But we're all growing up. We're all becoming something. We're all, I'm 26 now. I'll be 27 this year. Maybe it's time for me to see what I can do or how I can change the world for better, rather than just for myself. So growing up in North Carolina was very different than being in New York. You know, as a kid, we used to visit a lot when I was a child, but for the most part, we lived in North Carolina. That's where we went to. That's where we went to school to. You know, I learned a lot of the areas in North Carolina more than I learned about the areas in New York. And I'm not saying I don't know any areas in New York, but I am saying that, during that time, I knew more of North Carolina. And of course, I knew New York because that's where I was growing up. Um, it was very difficult at times growing up in North Carolina. Being a black person, of course, being a shy black person with, mental disabilities like autism, like anxiety, like depression, like ADHD, those things. And then not even being diagnosed until I was even an adult already. You know what I'm saying? Most kids, especially most families who are white or light, tend to get their kid diagnosed and whatnot. But that wasn't something that was a thing in my family. We didn't necessarily go to therapy. We went to church. We didn't, uh, we didn't always have our parents there because for the most part, my mom worked. And my mom, she worked a lot. And she worked to keep a roof over our heads. And she worked to make sure the bills were paid and that food was in there. But that doesn't mean that she was always going to be there because our fathers weren't taking the slack or helping out in the way that they should have. You know, our fathers weren't really there in our lives. And for the most part, when my dad was there, he didn't know how to be a dad. So, being in that sense, he would sometimes come pick us up and drop us off at whoever place he was, at, and that was it. And we would just hang out with them, or he would try to teach me some of his business. But for the most part, sometimes I wouldn't see him for months on end, or sometimes it'd have been like over a year. Sometimes it just depended. I just never knew what I was gonna see that dude, and that's just how life was for us growing up. It was like most black families who grow up poor, um, and that was difficult. But during my childhood, and a lot of times I would say I was sad because of it, and that also led me to isolating myself away from people, sometimes intentionally or purposefully. And it also had people just, because I was weird, because I was a kid who wasn't good at talking or good at thinking of topics or good at telling jokes or, good at understanding emotion. Yeah, imagine that, like growing up and then like not even really having anyone present in your life as an adult to try to show you what's right and what's necessarily wrong. And I'm not bashing my mom because at the end of the day, she did what she had to do. You know what I'm saying? We grew up how we grew up, but my mom, at the end of the day, she hustled her ass off. She was a hustler, and she made sure that we were, even if we didn't have the nicest clothes, the nicest shoes, the nicest place. We still had a place. We still had clothes. We still had shoes. We still were able to go to school. It didn't matter if the water was hot. Was if the water was cold, we boiled the water on the stove and we washed. If the lights went out, we played hide and seek, or we put candles everywhere. Yo, you know what I'm saying? Like we made do with the problems or the issues that we face. You know, yeah, I remember times we were, you know, we lost place. I remember times when, you know, we were broke or we were super cold in the house because we didn't have any heat. You know, and that type of life, that's the type of life you live. You know, and it's hard talking about that stuff. I don't always talk about that stuff. I don't talk about the life that I've lived and whatnot because it's not gangbanging. It's not selling drugs, you know, and I'm not gonna sit here and talk about necessarily, you know, everything, you know, and I won't say that drugs didn't come into the equation, you know, especially when my brother was alive, you know, trying to provide for him and his daughter. So hell, I've even thought about it trying to provide for myself just alone because it's hard out here. It's hard, but you know that's what it was. Like Winston Salem, a lot of people tend to 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 jab on it. It's a small city, but it also was a city that was growing and turn, you know, creating itself. And music wise, that's how I grew up. I grew up in the church. That's what got me to want to play piano. That's what got me to want to play guitar and stuff. It's listening to the radio that our mom that mom used to have out is I remember it was like this black, you know, radio with the antenna and stuff. But, you know, just all of those things, you know, just growing up in North Carolina in general, the stuff that I've seen and the things that I've dealt with is just like most black families, which is also why I don't always talk about that stuff, you know, in my raps. A lot of times I will talk about problems in general that we have or situations that I feel that that should be talked about. And then of course I also want to hit bangers and I want to make things that make you think, make you want to do better, make you want to feel like you're loved, and that's what I do for my music. And I learned that honestly growing up in North Carolina, but also like even going back to New York and visiting my family. Back when my grandma used to live there. My grandma, she lived in New York for over 20, 30 years before she came back to North Carolina. And yeah, so we had our good times, we had our bad. Like most people in the world, we were suffering. We were poor. And that's how it goes in life, I feel. There's people who've been through worse, and there's people who've been through better. But yeah, that's what it was like, honestly, growing up in North Carolina, growing up in New York. I would honestly, I was in marching band in high school. I was in band in middle school. I was in orchestra in sixth grade. You know, most times when I hung out with my friends, it was marching band friends, or um, I was also in Italian club and I was also in soccer. But for the most part, music was like where I would go. Like that was my out from anything I was dealing with in the world, and or people that I would deal with who just didn't understand me and chose to perceive me as something that I wasn't. Mm. But Winston is definitely a place. Excuse me. Winston Salem is definitely a place with hidden gems, like without a doubt. Like it has a lot of hidden gems, a lot of places that I don't even, that I haven't even necessarily looked into. And that's one of the things I do love about my hometown. I will say that. It's definitely just there's the hidden gems, there's and it's growing now. It's growing to have more gems, but they're not so hidden anymore. I love that. I love that. So that was my life growing up. It was hard. and I worked my butt off, and then I went in the military. And after the military, I got out and did came back home, and that's when I created so many songs that were supposed to be for that first album, and then went and worked at shipyards because I'm not just a musician. I also do engineer work. I'm an outside machinist. I do machinist work. Any type of thing that requires a wrench, I've worked on, and that is a whole different ball game than music. So, but you know, you love it, but at the same time, being a black woman in that field, that came with its own things. So, whew, I would say I've been through a lot. I just don't always talk about it. But yeah, that's what it was like. Why do I do what I do? I would say I do what I do because nobody else out here is really doing it. I mean, I'm saying that it's similarly like there are a lot of great artists out there. There are a lot of great artists who talk about great topics, who talk about their lives. I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I do if I didn't listen to these great artists. And they're artists today, hip hop artists that inspire me. People that I would love to work with. Saba, Tierra Whack and Rico Nasty. Like all of them are doing something different. All of them vibe in a different way. Shmino, like pretty awesome artists, Little Sims, and these are from people from different demographics who talk about different things. But they're definitely artists that I listen to. And that's not even that's just a speck of the artists that I listen to who are dope and are out here, who are doing amazing things. And then I'm a musician, so I listen to more than just hip hop. I listen more than just hip hop. I can't feel like you can't be a true musician and not listen and just listen to one genre. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Like you can't just listen to one genre as a musician and go, yeah, that's where I'm getting all the things I'm learning from. Like no way. No way. As a musician and if you're just going to music in general, you've got to open yourself up. And honestly, that's how it was for me. I'm influenced by a lot of things. But why I do what I mainly do is because, again, I want to change the world. I want to change the world. I want to make it better than what it is. I want to change how we think about things. I want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want us to think about how we think about things. Why we do the things that we do, and figure out better ways of doing it. Not just because I feel like society and the world goes by this. Oh, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That makes no sense. You can't not fix the world. The world constantly evolves. It constantly changes. You know what I'm saying? We do revision books for medical. We do revision books for engineering. We do revision books for all this stuff. But we don't do revision books for life, for society, for how we treat low-wage people. Like it boggles my mind. We can figure out certain things, but other things we let lack. And as a collective majority, I want us to not blame each other, but to ask ourselves, why? What can we do to make it better, to change it, individually and as a group? Because I just don't like the way that we treat each other. I don't like how we treat our world that we live in. I'm just not necessarily happy with it. And maybe it's because I've lived, a life that was not necessarily easy, I guess. That, and I'm not saying that you should take stress away from life. I feel like in some ways stress is a good thing. I think there's some certain negative things that are good to feel. so that you can grow to be better. But certain other things, are they really needed? You know, do we really need to um, really just be, I don't know, super selfish with certain things that we do, I guess, you know? But I also feel like that's just part of the world that we live in. So it is just is what it is. But at the same time, if we could find a way to find a better system to help those in need rather than pushing them away and going, well, this was your problem that you made, you know? Because some people don't, I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of people who are going to have to figure out, mainly on their own, to change themselves. And it's really hard for us. Like, once we get into a set tempo, so to speak, once we get into our, what we've learned and everything, it's hard to take that away. You know, it's hard to take someone away who's always been around financially unstable lifestyle. Like, imagine growing up financially unstable your whole life. You're not going to know how to be financially stable. You know why you're not going to know? Because you've never been taught to be financially stable. So how do we fix that? You know, how do we get people to learn to be financially stable? You know what I'm saying? And if this is what fucks up our whole money system, then maybe it wasn't a good money system to begin with. Just a thought. A thought. You know? So that's why I do what I do. I want us to think about the things that we do. I want us to think about how apathetic we're becoming, and oh, I'm sorry, like bags in my eyes. I'm tired. But how apathetic we've become, and how I don't know. It's kind of cringe, but I guess how unemotional. Like, more than an autistic person. Like, super, like, I don't know, certain people, certain sociopathic tendencies almost. So, I don't know. I want us to delve into that. And, of course, spread love and positivity. That's definitely a big goal of mine, why I do what I do. You know? Because we need to, I mean, you can't ever have enough peace, love, and positivity in your life. You just can't. You know? You can live off that shit for the rest of your life and be content, I feel. But, you know, that's why I do what I do. I want to change the way that we think and the way that we do things, because from a neurotypical standpoint it might not be a big deal, but from an atypical standpoint, from someone who is not what society would deem normal, it's a lot and it's really hard, and we don't have that help. And I'm not saying that it is up to everyone to necessarily, I mean, I wish we all felt like that. But let's be honest, most of us might have so much going on in our lives that that's all we can handle, you know? And again, that could be part of selfishness, but it could also be a part of our boundaries too. I just want us to look beyond just what we're thinking or what we're doing, and sometimes, you know, think beyond ourselves. I feel like that would kind of help change the world a bit. And that's why I write my lyrics and my raps. I mean, if you look and you actually look at my lyrics, or you listen to my rapping, and you listen to what I'm saying, that's what it's always been about. It's just about calling shit out, and shit that I've seen or observed in my life or dealt with in my life, and going, man, how do we do what we do? Why can't we, you know, why shouldn't we figure out a way to do it better? You know, why is that impossible? So, yeah, that's why I do what I do.